take a look at this image on your screen and think about what you see. What's being portrayed here? This is a photograph that appears on the wall of a restaurant in Phoenix, Arizona. What do you see? The portrait, or the photograph, is a portrayal of some coal miners who were photographed after their day's work, who had stopped by the local tavern to have a beer. Can you see that in this image? Look like coal miners to you? That's not the way that everyone sees this. Okay, this caused some controversy in Arizona, and you have here on your screen an essay that appeared in Arizona's main newspaper. It's the main newspaper for the entire state, called the Arizona Republican. I'll go ahead and read it. It's titled, "Who Determines What's Offensive?" For me, the writer says, the coal miners disappeared, and a film honored for its artistic merit despite being the most racist propaganda film ever, D.W. Griffin's Birth of a Nation, surfaces, in which white actors appeared in blackface. The white owner of the restaurant saw coal miners in the photograph. Therefore, it was not offensive. At the downtown Phoenix restaurant, my concern that the photograph of men in blackface was a threat to me and my face and my voice were ignored. A business's photograph of men with blackened faces culturally says to me, whites only. It says people like me are not welcome. The operators of that downtown restaurant can choose to take the photograph down, leave it up, or create a title card with an intention statement. No matter their decision, I think the photograph should be taken down, sacrificing one image for the greater good. All right. So we have competing claims here. This person's making an ethical argument. This person's saying this photograph should be taken down. That's what we should do. I've made a moral claim. And the reason for my moral claim is that this picture is offensive. This picture is promoting a racially discriminatory message. And my evidence of that is that that's what I perceive as an individual. On the other hand, you have the owner of the restaurant saying, well, despite your perceptions of what you see in this photograph, that's not what the photograph actually is. And the other person is saying, that's irrelevant. What you claim the photograph is actually a picture of is irrelevant to my experience. Okay? So we have here these competing notions of truth that we need to unpackage a little bit. All right? So the world consists of subjects and objects. I'm a subject, you're a subject. To say that we're subjects is to say that we have an experience of an inner life. When I taste pizza, I have an experience of pizza taste that is unique to me, and it's totally inaccessible to you. Okay? The world also contains objects. These are the things that can be perceived, and they're not reliant on my inner life or my perceptual experiences of them. Okay? So the pizza is an object in the world, but it's not a subject because the pizza is not having any experiences. So I'm a subject, you're a subject, but you're also an object, and I'm also an object because you can be perceived by others. When we have these experiences that are unique to us and not accessible to others, we're saying that the knowledge I acquire through these experiences is subjective knowledge. This is knowledge that is only accessible to me, not to you. So I take a bite of the pizza and I say, oh my gosh, this pizza is way too salty. You take a bite of the pizza and you say, not to me, tastes just fine, okay? So we both have knowledge of the flavor of this pizza, but our knowledge of the flavor of the pizza is totally inaccessible to us. Our experiences of the flavor is completely confined to our inner lives. On the other hand, we might say that while we have subjective knowledge of the flavor of the pizzas, we can gain objective knowledge about the pizza itself. Well, how much sodium does the pizza actually contain? We can measure that. And that amount of sodium that we determine is in the pizza doesn't at all depend on our inner lives, on our consciousness for that sodium to be whatever level it is. And we might sort of, in more colloquial terms, talk about these kinds of experiences as my truth and the truth, or a truth, okay? When we talk about my truth, we're talking about something that's true for me, some knowledge that I have that's inaccessible to you, because it's knowledge that's confined to the interiority of my life, okay? But we might also claim there are things that are true that do not depend on me for their quality, for their truthfulness. Okay, so we say there's a truth about the pizza. It has a certain size, it has a certain weight, has certain ingredients, But the experience of the pizza, the taste of it, the smell of it, the feel of it, those are going to be my truths, our individual truths. Now, you can see in that letter about the photograph, the letter writer is making the claim that there really isn't a such thing as the truth. There is my truth. I look at this photograph, I see a particular representation, and based on that, I feel offense, and based on that, I'm saying that the right thing to do is to take that picture down. Whereas you can see that the restaurant owner is embracing more of this objective idea of truth. The restaurant owner is saying, look, I see how you feel, but how you feel doesn't seem to be relevant to the fact of the matter, which is that this is a photograph that doesn't have any racial overtones and is not making any kind of racially discriminatory statement. It's a photograph of coal miners, okay? So you can see here there's this tension between competing ideas about what's true and what's true, what is true, and what exactly that means to say that something is true. A couple of years ago, in 2020 to be exact, this tension really boiled up to a head when a bunch of academics started to debate whether or not 2 + 2 really equals 4. Okay, so there were some folks that were stepping forward and saying, look, mathematical truths are objective truths. They don't care about your feelings. 2 + 2 = 4. And you had another group of folks come forward and say, 2 + 2 doesn't necessarily equal 4. It only equals 4 because that's what we have collectively agreed that it equals. But it could just as easily equal 5 if we all just agreed to that, because there is no such thing as truth. There's only our ideas about what's true. And so if we all sort of rally around this idea that 2 + 2 = 5, it would, because truths are a function of power, not necessarily related to objective reality as it actually is. And it's important to keep in mind that when these folks made this argument, they're not saying that if we change the value of the number 2 or the number 5, or we change the definition of addition or equality. No, they're saying there is no thing as objective truth. And that's what I want you to consider here for a moment. Do thoughts and statements correspond to an objective reality? Are there thoughts and statements that are about things external to ourselves, objective truths? Or is every thought and statement simply a report of an inner experience? Okay? Now, this is relevant because the first 3 ethical theories we're going to look at, subjectivism, emotivism, and cultural relativism, are all relativistic ethical theories, okay? So think about what it means to say that something is relative. We might say something like, well, pain is relative. What are we saying when we say that pain is relative? What we're saying is that the quality of pain is going to be directly correlated to the person who's having the experience of pain. One person's experience of pain might not be as severe as another person's experience of pain. So the same injury may cause different experiences of pain. Pain is relative. Now, in philosophy, relativism broadly refers to 2 possibilities. One of them is epistemological relativism. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. And so an epistemological relativist holds that there's no such thing as truth that can be known about the world out there. Okay, all we ever know are our individual or maybe our group or collective impressions of things. But everything that when we ordinarily think of, or when we use the word truth, we're not making a claim about anything external to, or anything independent of our impressions of things. Facts don't exist except as widely agreed upon opinions, okay? So the force of the majority is what makes us say that facts are true. But the epistemological relativist is going to say, but really there's no such thing as facts at all. Everything is just kind of an impression. Now, epistemological relativism implies ethical relativism, although not all ethical relativists are epistemological relativists. Ethical relativism holds this: there exists no ethical or moral truths. There are no moral facts. All we know are our individual and collective beliefs and feelings. So all we can have knowledge of is how we think about things, what our beliefs are, or what our group's beliefs are, what the norms and expectations of our groups are. Okay, so moral truths, what we say is morally correct, those are really just opinions. They're either individual or group opinions about what's right and wrong, and what makes those moral truths true is that we have force to back them up, okay? It's not that they're true in the sense that they describe the world as it actually is. It's just that these are the popular opinions, or this is the most widely held opinion, or this is my opinion. Okay, Now, what's important to remember, because we're going to come back to this at the end of this thought primer, is that there's a very fundamental assumption underlying epistemological and ethical relativism. And the underlying assumption is this: there exists an infinite number of interpretations. In other words, there is the possibility of an infinite number of perceiving things, human beings, for example. We could have an infinite number of them, and all of them would have different interpretations of anything. And the relativist holds that there doesn't exist, and there will never exist, any objective standard for judging interpretations. So when you look at this image here, maybe you see an old woman, maybe you see a young woman. Okay? Can you see it? Can you see the old woman? That's the easiest one. The old woman, here's her nose. It's got kind of a bump on it. And then here's her mouth and her chin. And she's got this little bonnet on her head here. Okay, now the young one, we're looking at her from the back. Here's her left ear. Here's her nose, her forehead, her chin. And she's got this little necklace on right here. Okay, so the relativist is going to look at that and say, see, what you see depends on who you are. There is no old woman or young woman here objectively. It's just whatever you see. And so they would extend this out then to questions about morality. When you look at this image, do you see injustice or justice? When we bring the dog forward with the famous, is it wrong to skin puppies alive question? Is that just a matter of individual opinion? Is it wrong to skin puppies alive just because in our culture we happen to say it's wrong? It's not really wrong. It's just that we say it's wrong. Okay, and these are the kinds of questions that we're going to be looking at as we explore these first three ethical theories.